Chapter 1805 Metal Shell. In the vast and desolate desert, on top of a huge, weird metal building, humanoid creatures with special metal bodies were divided into two rows, surrounding a six-winged being. Some of them had a huge black metal hat on their heads, with two huge curved hook blades on the edges. From the head to the heels was a wide tail with centipedes, like a giant weapon lying on the back of a person. Some of them had heads like iron barrels, without facial features, and were pitch black, like a crudely made, unformed snowman. Some of them had slender bodies, but more than a dozen tentacles stretched out from their backs, and the ends of the tentacles flashed red light. These were the demons of the mechanical civilization. And right in front of them, on a simple throne built of white stones, sat a humanoid creature with 6 wings on his back. He looked no different from those demons, except that those white wings looked like a living organism. Sitting on the throne, his eyes, which had been tightly closed, suddenly opened slowly. A combat unit, codenamed Gue, was destroyed. Of course, he did not address the demon god Gue like humans, but just to make it easier to understand, he had to assimilate the language of mechanical life forms with humans. On the left side in front of him, a demon god with a slender body and 6 black sword handles inlaid with red energy crystals suspended behind him turned his head. "Do we need to rebuild it?" Lu Yi said lightly. "No need. Without the core, what is rebuilt is just a useless shell. Being defeated by the surface people means that it has lost its value as a combat machine." On the right side of Lu Yi is a demon god with 8 octopus-like mechanical tentacles on his back, with sharp blades at the end of the tentacles, and his lower body hidden in a skirt-like armor. Those people on the surface actually took the initiative to attack our engineering troops. It's really troublesome. Kill them all, so that our engineering progress will not be affected. The demon god on the left said, "We don't have time to play with those creatures of low civilization. Eliminating them will only waste our time and energy." The demon god on the right whispered, "Exterminate insects." The demon gods seemed to be indifferent to this, just waiting for the 6 wings on the throne to give orders. The 6 wings seemed to be smiling. Even insects can have their uses. These blindly arrogant and ignorant guys may be able to help us. He spread his hands, and his voice spread all around. "Come and add fuel to the fire." Mu Yan's shadow space. She sat quietly on a metal box, which was disassembled from a mechanical life form. In the shadow space, various mechanical life parts were placed everywhere. Recently, Lu Karen used this place as a studio to study the structure of mechanical life forms and analyze their materials and core modules. Zhang Yi was also here. Lu Qian was responsible for disassembling the demon body. The divine machine could decompose all materials without damaging them. Without this ability, it would be almost impossible to analyze this special metal material. On the other side, Yang Xinxin used the supercomputer in her hand to connect the circuit board in the mechanical life form, probably something similar. The operating rules of mechanical life forms are similar to those of human mechanical equipment, but not exactly the same. However, the operating rules of all things have the flow of energy, which is not different. Lu Qian specially helped Yang Xinxin to transform the supercomputer and connected a new interface to invade the circuit board of the mechanical life form. As for Zhang Yi, he couldn't help much. He came here to rest. He sat not far from Mu Yan, with his hands crossed and his chin supported, his eyes deep, thinking about everything that might happen in the future on the land of Fremons. Everything is unknown. Each of these powerful and mysterious underground civilizations has a completely different level of civilization, and even the form of existence is completely different. There is almost no connection between 2 different underground civilizations, and it is impossible to infer what the underground civilization we are facing now is through past experience. Zhang Yi couldn't help wondering how many secrets this planet had. Why didn't they appear in the tens of thousands of years since the birth of mankind? Or did they appear a long time ago, but humans didn't realize it? Or were they the race of gods who guided humans to evolve rapidly in ancient times? The more Zhang Yi thought about it, the more he felt that this world was full of secrets. Everything he didn't know made him feel uneasy. He rubbed his eyebrows. The only thing he could be thankful for was that his current strength had reached the level of the lowest level underground civilization. Although his ability index should still be a little different from that of Neon's god of production, Ness Sun God, if he faced him again, he could guarantee that he would be invincible. Sure enough, in this broken world, only strength is everything, Zhang Yi said in a deep voice. However, we still have to find a way to build a super fortress as soon as possible. The current goal is to reach a level that can withstand the attack of the Wulwan Empire. Zhang Yi set himself a short-term goal. At this time, Lu Karen's voice sounded in his ears. If it really doesn't work, flying into outer space will also work. Although building a giant artificial satellite that can survive for a long time is not feasible at the current level of technology, it is still very difficult to reach the level. But we can try to land on the moon or even Mars. I think this day will come. Zhang Yi turned his head and saw Lu Karen carrying an exoskeleton armor on his back. It was only half of his body, and it looked like he was wearing it. It had thick mechanical arms and was loaded with various complex tools. It looked heavy, but it was very light when carried on his back, and it was not strenuous at all. Lu Karen was only wearing a white t-shirt. At this time, he was wiping the sweat from his face and looking at Zhang Yi with a smile. Zhang Yi jumped up from the metal box, walked over and asked, "Are there any research results?" Lu Karen said, "The results of the current research are as expected, and they are really surprising." In front of her, the body of the demon god Gui had been disassembled into pieces, and a large number of red energy crystals were arranged in many rows on the table. At a quick glance, there were no less than 20 pieces. Zhang Yi said with some surprise, "There are only 5 pieces on a super-large mechanical life form, and it has so many on its body." Lu Qian picked up a palm-sized energy crystal and said, "This thing can be loaded onto the machine. I already know how to use it." Zhang Yi spread his hands and said, "Then your mecha will be fine after it is powered. However, what I am most concerned about is its weapon system. The demon god uses a super-era thermal weapon system, not a gunpowder weapon but an energy weapon. If this technology can be developed well, it can even allow ordinary people to have strength comparable to that of a powerful alien. Of course, if it is used on an alien, it can exert multiple times the power." "Oh, you mean weapons?" Lu Qian raised 2 weapons on the demon god from the side, a curved blade in the shape of a scorpion's pincers, and a huge hook blade in the shape of a scorpion's tail. The weapon system on him is very simple. There are only these 2, and the attack method is extremely simple. Lu Qian spread his hands and said, "It is to extract the energy of the red energy crystal, and then release it from the end of the blade like firing a bullet." Zhang Yi said, "This is the so-called simplicity of the Great Way. The superpower belongs to the sword's unconventional approach, and through differences, to gain the advantage of information gap. But once the information is leaked, it will be at a disadvantage. In the final analysis, superpowers are just a form of releasing energy from the body. The human body is very magical, and its internal structure has not been fully understood until now, so all kinds of magical superpowers are born. Mechanical life forms are also made by some kind of creatures, so how can their manufacturing capabilities exceed the creator?" Zhang Yi looked at Gui's weapon and was somewhat tempted. "Can it be transformed into something I can use? Fuse it with the Xinlian?" Lu Karen nodded. "Of course, that's what I plan to do." Xinlian itself is a product of biotechnology. The metal material on the body of the demon god Gui cannot be made by human technology. It is even many times stronger than the current E-metal. If it is integrated into the Xinlian, your brother's attack and defense will be greatly improved." Zhang Yi said, "The most critical point is that in the next battle, I may face this kind of existence again. If there is a big gap in weapons, I will suffer." He once tried to wrap the magic chain around the demon god Gui, but when the other party slashed it with a knife, the magic chain really shattered like a green vine. He took off the bracelet and handed it to Lu Karen, asking her to help merge it with the weapon of the demon god Gui. Lu Karen nodded. This was not a difficult task for her. By the way, the most interesting thing is about it. While speaking, Lu Karen raised a black cube similar to a Rubik's Cube. This is the energy core of the demon god Goe. Brother, take a good look at it and see what's different about it. Zhang Yi stared at the thing for a while and found that in the cracks of the black Rubik's Cube, there were dark red substances emitting faint light. Well, it has edges and corners and it is a cube, Zhang Yi said. The energy core of a mechanical life form is spherical. Lu Karen laughed. It's not that simple. But she raised the black Rubik's Cube in her hand and looked at it carefully. I don't know what is hidden inside this thing now. Zhang Yi frowned slightly and asked with a puzzled smile. Isn't your ability to decompose the structure of all materials? Lu Kuoran shook his head.
No.
Brother, not all. For example, this one, my ability can't work on it. Lu Kuoran held his chin with one hand, with a puzzled look on his face. This is the most suspicious point. This is the first time that Shunji Guanji has failed to work on matter. This special material is too hard. If Shunji Guanji fails, then there is really nothing we can do with it. Fails. Zhang Yi thought for a moment. It's indeed a bit strange. Doesn't it mean that the research can't continue? Lu Kuoran spread his hands helplessly. In theory, this is the case. I'm still looking for the reason. The spoils of war that were fought hard may contain mechanical technology that subverts the world, but it can't be seen? This makes Zhang Yi feel anxious. Have you ever encountered this situation? Lu Kuoran shook his head. It has never happened. As long as it is a material structure, I can decompose it. I easily disassembled the core of a super-large mechanical life form. Maybe there is something special in it. It is indeed a fighter model of mechanical civilization. It is indeed different. There should be some special technology to fight against superpowers. Lu Karen muttered to himself. Technology specifically for countering supernatural powers? Zhang Yi took the Rubik's Cube in his hand, and suddenly he remembered that when he used the alien space to collect the remains of the demon god, he felt a resistance. His alien space can also collect almost all objects, except for one thing, living things with strong life energy. In fact, now he can actively collect ordinary humans and some small animals. But it is still difficult for aliens. Aliens have stronger life abilities and can resist the active collection of alien space. At that time, Zhang Yi did encounter resistance when collecting the remains of the demon god, but he was entangled with the divine chain and thrown in. Now think about it. Could it be that this core has a life reaction? Zhang Yi looked at Lu Karen. What can't your ability do? Lu Karen spread his hands. Living life. Zhang Yi's eyes stared at the black Rubik's Cube, and a guess emerged in his mind. I was wondering why I always felt that this kind of demon god had a different feeling than those ordinary mechanical life forms. At first, I thought it was because their technology was too advanced, which could make mechanical life forms have reactions similar to those of real creatures. But now it looks like this is clearly a carbon-based creature wearing the shell of a silicon-based creature. Lu Karen understood what Zhang Yi meant. She widened her eyes in surprise and stared at the black Rubik's Cube and said, Brother, are you saying that this is actually the body of a mechanical civilization creature? That's probably it. Maybe this is a cockpit? No, I don't think that makes sense. If so, they should have a way to escape. There is no need to build a humanoid external armor. So the greater possibility is that they abandoned their carbon-based bodies. Then they must have looked very much like their mechanical shells in the past. Zhang Yi held the black Rubik's Cube in his hand, and an idea came to his mind. He looked at Yang Xinxin, who was concentrating on deciphering the source code of the mechanical life form, and waved at her. Xinxin, shoot an arrow at this thing. Since it is a living creature, Yang Xinxin's ability should be able to play a role.